Good morning, everybody. This is First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. Quick update on the weather this morning, and we're going to talk a little bit about Chantal and the impacts it could have here in the Carolinas. First and foremost, let's start with what's going on right now. You can see our current temperatures in the upper 70s. The sticky part about our forecast, the dew points right now are well into the 70s. It is an extremely muggy air mass. A lot of the area recovered from the little bit of dry air we had yesterday. I know it didn't seem like much, but we actually had a little bit of drier air into the region. We'll turn off our temperatures. You can see we've got some dirty cloud cover out there. It looks like a lot of remnant or convective debris, we call it. It's leftovers of thunderstorms and rain yesterday. When looking at some of the instability parameters, we look at the CAPE values. You can see CAPE is already building across many areas of the Piedmont, in some cases around 3,000 or 4,000 CAPE, which is plenty high enough to get storms developing. So there's plenty of fuel out there today for storms. I'm not anticipating severe weather to develop, but we definitely are going to see some strong storms developing later this afternoon with some heavy downpours, just like we've seen recently. The heavy downpours are the big story. We look at the 500 millibar heights. You can see we've got a big ridge of high pressure centered over the desert southwest. We've got a little short wave coming through the upper Midwest, and that's something we're going to watch going into the later part of the week, because that's going to rotate down in here and eventually enhance our shower chances. We've got this little trough on the East Coast, and then we've got a little upper low over the Florida Straits, northern Bahamas down there. That little low is actually helping increase the shower chances over parts of Florida. Now that brings me to our next area of concern, and that is Tropical Storm Chantal. Now Chantal is down here, right here in Barbados, the southern Windward Islands, moving to the west at a pretty good clip, about 25 miles an hour. Here's the latest forecast track. That was this morning's update. We'll get one here at 11 a.m. You can see the hurricane hunters are actually out there right now. And the only difference from yesterday, the track is shifted a little farther east, and because it's going to spend less time over the big islands, it's actually going to get a chance to get a little bit stronger as it goes into the weekend. Now, the problem is eventually that could be a big player for us in the Carolinas. So let's go to the satellite image. There's our system down there. You can see it nice and clear. Let's throw up all the computer models. We like to call these spaghetti plots, because if you look at them, it looks like spaghetti noodles. And look at the mess we have. Pretty good consistency through the Caribbean. Then over Haiti, Dominican Republic, it starts to spread out. Then we get towards the Bahamas, and this is where the mess starts developing. And one thing you notice here, there's a clustering over the Bahamas, but the thing I'm noticing here lately is we've got a pretty good tendency for some of the models to curve out and then come back into Florida. We've got a couple outliers trying to go into the Gulf of Mexico. I don't think that's a likelihood. That looks like that would be less likely, but there's a pretty good consistency, especially among the Canadian models and some of the ensembles of the GFS up here into South Carolina and Georgia, which means a big mess of rainfall up in this region. Now, looking at the models, at least recently, the ones that have done the best job have actually been the Canadian and some of the ensembles. Let me turn some of these off. We'll go the early cycle runs here. There's the early cycle runs this morning. You notice the GFNI and the Canadian CMC2, and then you have the GLDF out here, out way east and then curving back, and you got the Hurricane Wharf a little closer. One of the main GFS here into southern Florida, the BAM model, which is a statistical model. Some of the other statistical models want to go into the Gulf of Mexico. The late model runs were a little more east of Florida, and then you get into all the ensembles, and you can see how they're spreading out all over the place. So pretty interesting to watch how this is going to unfold over the next 24 hours. If we look at some of the data, and this is the Hurricane Wharf on Saturday morning. This is a 4-panel, so up here in the upper left, you're looking at wind speeds. You're looking at a pretty good tropical storm with winds around 60, 65 miles an hour. This is a simulated IR or satellite image, and then down here you got sea level pressure, and then on the lower right is a good representation. If you look carefully there on the radar interpretation, you got a nice little eye there east of the Florida Panhandle in the northern Bahamas. If we look at the GFDL, which is interesting, I talked about this earlier on the Google Earth map. It comes up here, recurves out, and then brings a sharp left turn. And if you notice carefully, there's a pretty good storm right there, maybe even minimal tropical or hurricane strength moving into Florida. So the models are kind of, once you get up here into the Bahamas, all bets are kind of off on where this thing is going to go. by the time it gets east of Florida. So when we widen this out a little bit, I'm going to show you the water vapor loop here. And you can see some of the parameters we got going on. There's an upper low ahead of it, which is going to be interesting because as long as it moves out of the way or moves in tandem, it should allow Chantal to strengthen. But you look at this pretty good pocket of dry air that it has to get through. And then if you look out over the Atlantic, the Bermuda high is pretty persistent out there. There's not a lot of wind shear for it to deal with. The biggest inhibiting factors for strengthening are obviously going to be all the mountainous terrains of Hispaniola, and then the dry air that it has to overcome here. If it can get through these areas and get up here in the Bahamas, then conditions are pretty good that it could maintain its strength. No matter what happens with this system, the primary concern for all of us is going to be the flooding rains as it moves up into the eastern United States, because with that persistent trough on the East Coast and all this tropical moisture around, it's not going to take much for there to be more flooding. So my big concern is if it gets anywhere in here, it's not going to be storm surge, it's not going to be wind, it's going to be flash flooding with a big F. This is going to be bad news if this thing gets up here. And again, the time frame is later this weekend into early next week. So that's just a quick look at the model guidance again. I'll throw the model guidance up there, and you can see where we stand as far as where the storm is. At least the models think it's going right now. A lot of uncertainty out here at day 5 and 6, which is pretty typical. So if you have plans on the coast, I'd go ahead and just stay tuned to the weather. And for everybody else, get ready. The bad news is more rain on the way. I'll see you today starting at 4, 5, and 6 on NBC Charlotte, and we'll have an update on the track and any other changes to our weather. I'm sure we'll be tracking some scattered storms developing this afternoon, which by now you should be used to. Have a great day.